The San Francisco 49ers are in one of those moments that every fan recognizes. You come out of a game with a mix of emotions, not sure whether to feel frustrated, hopeful, or somewhere in between. Let's start with the obvious. Brock Purdy's performance against the Jaguars left a lot of people scratching their heads. Watching it live, there was this initial feeling that maybe it wasn't all that bad. But when you go back and study the tape, you start noticing the details that change the story. Throws sailing a little high, passes dropping too short, balls missing left and right. Consistency just wasn't there, and that stands out for a quarterback who has built his reputation on calmness and precision. Now, the toe injury clearly played a bigger role than many of us realized in real time. It is one thing to watch the highlights, and another to track the body mechanics on every snap. That toe was affecting him, no question about it. Even so, not every turnover can be excused away by an injury. Some of them were simply poor decisions, and the reality is that San Francisco's offense paid the price. But here's the interesting twist. Despite those turnovers, despite the missed opportunities, the 49ers still outperformed the Jaguars' offense in several areas. They moved the ball with more authority, they generated explosive plays, and they showed resilience in the middle of all the chaos. That's not something you could just brush off. When a team coughs up the ball 4 times and still makes itself tough to beat, that says a lot about the overall strength of the roster. The Niners essentially handed that game away, but the fact that it was even close speaks volumes. That's the hope fans can cling to right now. This is not a broken team. It's a team that still forces opponents to work hard for every yard, even when it is giving away possessions. Now, let's talk about the scheduling change that feels like a gift from a league. West Coast teams traveling east to play early games is always a disadvantage. Every stat line you pull up confirms it. The body clocks are off, the rhythm is different, and more often than not, those games get ugly fast. The 49ers were originally stuck with a string of early starts, none of them at Levi's Stadium, all of them on the road in tough environments like New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Houston, New York, and Cleveland. That's a brutal stretch for any team. And yet, here comes the adjustment. The NFL flexed San Francisco into that later afternoon slot, and it makes a world of difference. You don't have to be a scientist to understand that giving a team just a few extra hours to prepare and align its schedule can completely change the way it looks on the field. The Chargers gave us a clear example of how damaging those early starts can be. They went east to face a Giants team led by a rookie quarterback and missing key players, and somehow still managed to lose. That's not entirely because of the kickoff time, but it's definitely part of the equation. West Coast teams just do not play their best football when their bodies still think it is breakfast time. So for the 49ers, this shift is more than a minor tweak. It is a major advantage heading into a huge matchup. You can downplay it if you want, but when you add everything up, this could be the difference between a slow, sloppy start and a locked-in, focused performance. On the injury front, the updates have been a mix of relief and concern. Kyle Shanahan mentioned that Malik Mustafa could return to practice after Week 6, which is encouraging news given how serious his ACL injury initially looked. Any progress in that direction is positive, and the fact that he is trending toward a return sooner rather than later is something the team desperately needs. On the other side, Ricky Pearl is dealing with a knee issue that seems less devastating than an ACL tear, but still serious enough to put his availability in question. The comparison to injuries like Christian McCaffrey's PCL strain offers a bit of perspective. It's something players can recover from, but it requires patience. Jawan Jennings is another name floating in the uncertainty column. He insisted he would be ready, but waking up the next morning with rib pain tells a different story. Those types of injuries can linger, and with a short turnaround before the next game, optimism doesn't always translate into reality. Then you add in the soreness that Brock Purdy admitted to after the game, and suddenly the offense looks like it's balancing on a thin line. A quarterback not at 100%, receivers dealing with their own knocks, and a depth chart that's being tested harder than anyone would like this early in the season. It's a reminder of how quickly momentum can shift in the NFL. Just a few weeks ago, everyone was talking about how unstoppable this group looked, and now each practice report feels like a test of nerves. Still, there are bright spots, and they deserve attention. Fred Warner is putting together the kind of season that makes you sit up and realize you're watching something special. PFF numbers can always be debated, but when they place him at the very top across the entire league, it backs up what our eyes are already telling us. He is flying around the field, disrupting plays, forcing turnovers, and setting the tone for the defense. Even without racking up interceptions every week, he is dictating games in a way only the elite can. That level of impact cannot be overstated, and it gives the 49ers a defensive anchor no matter what else happens around him. There's also an under-the-radar story developing on the offensive line. Colton McKivitz has quietly become one of the top-graded pass-blocking tackles in football. He has only allowed a handful of pressures through 4 games, and that kind of consistency at a premium position is massive. With Trent Williams no longer playing at his absolute peak as age and injuries begin to show, having someone like McKivitz step up has been critical. Williams, even while dealing with his struggles, is still rated among the top tackles in the game, which shows just how tough that position really is. Fans are quick to demand replacements, but the reality is that quality tackles don't just appear out of nowhere. What San Francisco has on the edges might not be perfect, but it's better than what many other teams are working with. Where things get more complicated is on the interior. Rookie Connor Kybry has been thrown into action sooner than expected, and the results have been rough. Multiple games with 5 or more pressures allowed is not sustainable, especially when you're protecting a quarterback dealing with an injury. That is the kind of weakness opponents circle on film and attack relentlessly. It's one of those situations where the 49ers are going to have to make a choice. Either trust the rookie to develop fast or look for adjustments in scheme to cover up the cracks. And yet, even in the middle of that storm, the 49ers stayed competitive. That's the paradox of this team right now. On one hand, glaring weaknesses are being exposed. On the other hand, the overall talent level keeps them in games they probably should not be in. It's frustrating, it's messy, but it's also proof that the foundation is still strong. The question is whether they can tighten up the execution, get healthier, and turn those close calls back into comfortable wins. When you look at how this last game unfolded, the strangest part is the perception around Brock Purdy. In real time, there were stretches where he seemed to be in control, making some throws that gave his receivers chances to shine. High balls to George Kittle or Brandon Ayuk that, when they connect, feel like classic Purdy confidence. But going back and watching it again, those same throws can look like near disasters. It's a fine line between giving your guy a chance and putting the ball in harm's way. That's why the debate around him feels so split. On one side, you see the flashes of brilliance that make him the story of San Francisco's offense. On the other, you see inconsistency, missed placements, and moments that could have flipped the entire game. Injuries explain part of it, but not everything. PFF's breakdown adds another layer to this conversation. According to their grading, both Purdy and Trevor Lawrence had just 1 turnover-worthy play each. That is fascinating because it doesn't match the eye test for many fans. Watching live, it felt like Purdy had multiple moments where disaster was on the edge of happening. But when you strip away penalties and evaluate purely by their grading system, the numbers paint a calmer picture. You can argue with the method, but you can't deny the way it changes the narrative. If the data says the quarterback only truly put the ball at risk once, then maybe our perspective needs adjusting, or maybe it highlights how misleading the raw box score can be. What no one can deny is that the offensive line made life tougher than it needed to be. 16 pressures allowed is not a recipe for success. Compare that to the Jaguars, who gave up only 5, and the difference is glaring. Jacksonville had moments where its rookie linemen looked steady, while San Francisco's interior crumbled too often. Connor Kybry being responsible for 10 pressures in just 2 games tells you all you need to know. He's young, he's battling through injuries, but those numbers are brutal. And while Trent Williams is still respected around the league, this wasn't his finest outing either. 4 pressures allowed from a player of his pedigree stands out, especially when fans are already starting to wonder if time is catching up to him. That's the reality every veteran faces eventually. Your brain still knows what to do, but your body doesn't respond quite the same way. The defense had its share of struggles too. If you remove Travis Etienne's long run, the numbers look slightly better, but even then, the run defense wasn't up to standard. Pair that with the lack of pressure on the quarterback, and you get a unit that didn't control the game the way San Francisco fans are used to seeing. The defensive line, in particular, posted its worst performance in 10 years. That is not just a bad game. It is historically bad for a franchise that prides itself on dominance in the trenches. Nick Bosa's absence magnifies everything, but even with that, you expect more. The defensive identity of the 49ers has always been built on disrupting the pocket, and when that's missing, the rest of the unit feels vulnerable. Despite the disappointment, Fred Warner remains the heartbeat of the defense. Week after week, he finds ways to influence games, whether it's through big hits, near interceptions, or the kind of energy that lifts everyone around him. His PFF grade puts him at the very top of the league, tied with Puka Nacua of the Rams, and anyone who watched Warner fly around the field knows that grade is justified. He is playing at a Defensive Player of the Year level, even if the stat sheet doesn't always show it. That's the kind of player he is, impacting the game in ways that go beyond numbers. On the other hand, San Francisco's secondary had some intriguing storylines. Darrell Luter Jr., targeted just twice, allowed only 11 yards. That's the type of quiet efficiency you want from a corner. Upton Stout gave up just 8 yards. Diamador Lenore, surprisingly, was the one who surrendered the most yardage. Those are numbers that show promise, especially considering how shaky the defense looked overall. It's a reminder that sometimes individuals perform well even when the unit struggles as a whole. What stands out the most in all of this is the paradox of the 49ers right now. They are a team that can play poorly in so many key areas and still force opponents to fight tooth and nail for a win. For turnovers, a defense that couldn't generate pressure, injuries piling up, and yet Jacksonville didn't simply roll over them. That kind of resilience is rare. It's both frustrating and encouraging. Frustrating because you know the talent is there to dominate. Encouraging because even when the wheels feel like they're coming off, the foundation still holds strong enough to keep them in games. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to 49ers Zone and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the San Francisco 49ers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. In what could be the most talked about move of the NFL offseason, the San Francisco 49ers have officially confirmed the acquisition of superstar edge rusher T.J. Watt. The announcement has sent shockwaves through the league, but fans and insiders alike are buzzing about a tantalizing twist. The team also hinted at the arrival of another mystery star. No one knows exactly who this second addition might be, but speculation is already running wild. Sources close to the organization suggest that the 49ers are aiming to create a truly dominant defensive unit, one capable of challenging any offense in the league. What, a proven game-changer and perennial All-Pro, is expected to bring not only his relentless pass-rushing skills, but also leadership to a squad that has been steadily climbing back into championship contention. His presence alone could redefine the team's defensive strategy, but it's the enigmatic second signing that has fans losing sleep over potential possibilities. Rumors range from a high-profile quarterback to a versatile offensive playmaker, but nothing has been confirmed. Some insiders whisper that it could be a player whose name alone could shift the balance of power in the NFC, while others hint at a surprise veteran presence meant to mentor the younger stars on the roster. Either way, the 49ers have clearly positioned themselves as a team not just to watch, but to fear. Social media is ablaze with speculation, as fans dissect every hint dropped by the franchise. Analysts point out that the 49ers have historically been bold in free agency, and this offseason seems no different. The combination of Watt's elite talent with an as-yet unrevealed star could signal a serious Super Bowl push. Whatever the case, the excitement is palpable, and the NFL world is now eagerly counting down the days until the mystery is solved. One thing is certain. The 49ers are making headlines, and they're making them loud. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the San Francisco 49ers, make sure to subscribe to 49ers Zone and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.